Okay, I think it's 4:00 Melbourne time. So welcome everyone. My name's Tim Mckibben. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry about last week. We had a bit of a technological disaster with our Wi-Fi and cellular connections. So we're trying a new technology this time round. It should be good, should be rock solid. If we do have an issue, then there is a recorded teaching that we'll immediately make public, and we'll send you via the live chat, we'll send you a link so you can, it's pretty much the same talk, so you could just forward to wherever we've got to and continue. But hopefully that won't be required. We will be saying some prayers at the start. This is the Path to Enlightenment, our regular Path to Enlightenment class. So we do say prayers at the start. And if you wish to, many people at home will already have these, but if you wish to get a copy, just email events@tushita.org. That's Tushita with a TUSHITA.org. And at the end of the session, we can have question and answer via live chat. So, yeah. Okay. Now, I just want to show you, because this is such a marvelous location, and many people, I'm just going to quickly show you the temple. So I'm going to get up and just move the laptop and show you where we are. So that gives you just a brief idea. It's a really beautiful location. It's a traditional Tibetan temple here in the northern suburbs of Melbourne in Euroke, first traditional temple constructed in Australia. And it's full of these various images of enlightenment to inspire us and support our practice. So you can see behind me the large statue. That's the statue of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. He was the founder of the Buddhist tradition 2,500 years ago, with his three turnings of the wheel of Dharma, and they've been those Dharma teachings have been propagated down through a lineage of great teachers, really accomplished practitioners, all the way for us down to Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, which is the photo you can see behind me. He's the spiritual head of the Tibetan Buddhist Society, and he built this temple. He was a really marvelous teacher, a really wonderful teacher, highly accomplished, great scholar, recognized within his tradition. And fortunately for us, he wrote 9 texts on the Dharma before he passed away. And they're recognized throughout the world as being authoritative transmissions of these holy teachings. And Geshe was he was like an absolute encyclopedia of a vast canon of Buddhist works. and the various commentaries, as well as the Buddhist sutras. And he brought all that together and really put the essence into these books. So there was he wrote three books on the path to enlightenment, which is one of we're studying the most extensive of those today, and also books on Mahamudra and the nature of reality, on Buddha nature, the fundamental potential, our fundamental potential for enlightenment. Also, tantric texts on the practices of Vajrayogini, Yamataka, and the 6 yogas and Naropa, and also a prayer book, which is a basis of all the prayers that we do here and we'll be saying today. I'll just take 1 second and to make a slight alteration. Okay. All right. So, Venerable Mckibben has asked to do a light offering for Chotu Kumar's mother passed away yesterday. So, before we say our prayers, we just take a minute and request that Chotu Kumar's mother has a safe transition through the intermediate state, good rebirth with wonderful conditions, and step-by-step meeting holy teachers, and step-by-step developing all the way to enlightenment. So now we'll say the prayers, which we always do before our 4 o'clock class. This is the text, prayers for the path of indivisible, great bliss and emptiness. And the idea of the path, the prayers, is to look beyond our ordinary thoughts that we think all week long, all our daily act, and focus on beyond the ordinary, beyond the mundane, to looking at in Buddhism, we focus on the triple gem of refuge, and also we try to feel a connection to this lineage of great teachers, all the way from Shakyamuni Buddha down to our present day guru, and also we give voice to our aspiration to attain all the stages on the path to enlightenment and enlightenment itself. So, and the first couple of prayers we do in Tibetan, because this is the Tibetan Buddhist Society, and Geshe nominated that we do these in Tibetan. So feel free to chant, and wherever you are, the neighbours might think some Tibetans have moved in next door, but give it a good voice. Tampa chundindi dijin jepa dachampa yantapa sope sanje vipa da zatu dampa deva chitta jita jampa jeba dewe talo jua nana mepa dadan minanchi tampa Sanje chandende tajava shatya tupala jatsala chada jatsu chivo. Teacher, Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly pure and complete Buddha, all-knowing, having poise, Sugata, apprehender of the world, navigator of beings to be subdued, incomparable, teacher of gods and humans, to the Buddha, the Bhagawan, the glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, we prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge.
Sangyo danzo ti janana chan chan bandu dani chan tsu chi dadi jin tsu ji pi zananti Dana Benji Sanji Tsubajo. To the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. To the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. Then we make the short mandala offering, and we try to imagine a purified form, a completely pure universe, offering this to all holy beings. This ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, the four continents, adorned with sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. The seven-limb prayer. I prostrate my three doors with a mind of respect and offer all actually arranged and mentally emanated offerings. I reveal all the downfalls and negativities that I have ever collected and rejoice in the virtues of individuals and superiors. Please remain perfectly abiding until samsara is no longer seen. I request you to turn the vast and profound wheels of Dharma. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. Then the prayer of the lineage of gurus from the founding Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, through the wisdom and the method lineages, down to our current, in our case, Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, and our other gurus. Magnificent, excellent virtues, speech fulfilling the hopes of infinite beings, a mind that sees all objects of knowledge precisely. I bow my head to the chief among the Shakyas, supreme sons of the incomparable teacher, carrying the load of all the conquerors' deeds, by their emanations appearing in countless realms. I prostrate to Maitreya and Manjushri. The mother of conquerors is difficult to fathom. The precise thought is in commentaries written by Jampavipa's ornaments, Nagarjuna and Asanga. I prostrate at the feet of those most renowned in the three realms. From these two great chariots come the excellent lineages of the paths of profound view and vast deeds. Their essential points gathered thoroughly and without fault. Prostration to the lamp holding this treasury instruction. Giving explanation through compassion by seeing precisely and completely the essential points of all paths of Sutra and Tantra. Holder of the conqueror's entire holy Dharma. Prostrations to the glorious Lasandrapa. I seen all the infinite teachings, supreme way of crossing for those entering the journey to liberation, moved by compassion to deeds skilled in method, prostrations to the spiritual masters who make everything clear. Then the prayer of the path to enlightenment, which presents the main steps we need to traverse to attain the extraordinary state of enlightenment. The kind master is the basis of all qualities, and proper reliance is the root of the path. By seeing this excellence and through much striving, bestow blessings to be devoted with great respect. This gentle support of freedom, obtained this one time, is most difficult to achieve. Knowing its great value gives rise to a mind seizing its essence constantly day and night. Bestow blessings to generate this continuum unceasingly. It is like a bubble in water, this constantly moving body and life. Thus remember the swift collapse of death. Beyond death, like body and shadow, White and black karmic results follow after. By gaining firm certainty in this, the mass of faults, subtle and very subtle, are abandoned, and the accomplishment of all virtuous collections completed. Bestow blessings to ever attain conscientiousness. The qualities of samsara are unfit to be trusted, the door to all suffering. Do not be content with these enjoyments. By knowing its defects, bestow blessings to develop a great aspiration for the bliss of liberation. By that pure thought, great conscientiousness is drawn forth, and mindfulness and awareness of the individual liberation, the root of the teachings. Bestow blessings to make this the essential practice. Just as I myself have fallen into samsara's ocean, all living beings as mother are also like that. By seeing the responsibility for the liberation of beings, bestow blessings to be trained in supreme bodhicitta. However, by merely generating the mind, if not acquainted with the three aspects of ethics, enlightenment will not be attained. By seeing this excellence, bestow blessings to train with strong effort in the vows of the conqueror's sons. Pacifying distraction toward perverse objects, by way of proper analysis of the perfect meaning, bestow blessings to swiftly and continuously generate the path related to the union of calm abiding and special insight. Thus, becoming a vessel trained in the common paths, enter the Vajrayana, supreme evolution of all vehicles. Bestow blessings to engage the easy path itself, that sacred way of crossing for fortunate beings. The base of practice for the two aspects of attainment is when guarding the pure vows of commitment is found to be genuine and certain. Bestow blessings to protect them even at risk of life. Then, by understanding properly the important points, which are the essence of the two stages of the Tantra classes, bestow blessings to practice according to the teachings, with continuous effort in the supreme four-session yoga. Like that, by the spiritual friend revealing the gentle path, and the friends of proper practice stand firm. Bestow blessings to quickly pacify the masses of outer and inner hindrances. In all rebirths may I never be parted from perfect gurus, and the enjoyment of the glorious Dharma. By utterly completing all qualities, paths, and grounds, may I quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara. So, we normally start this session with a very brief meditation. So I certainly need to do that because we only managed to get our internet connection going 1 minute before the class. So I need a bit of de-stressing. But when we're meditating, ideally sitting with your back straight, whether you're in a chair or sitting on a cushion. And most people have their eyes closed or very slightly open, but I'm focused. I'm going to keep mine open because in practice, I realize my eyes flicker a lot when I'm meditating, and anyone joining the stream, it might look like you're joining a sort of preview for a zombie movie or an awakening of the, Dawn of the Dead or something like this. So anyway, we'll get on with it, enough said. So, first thing in meditation is to get comfortable. So we try and relax and get comfortable. And if we like, with the out-breath, we can release any tension we're feeling within our mind and any physical tension. So just letting it all go with the out-breath, as it's of no benefit to us whatsoever. Enjoy releasing any tension, any preoccupation. And we can practice a 7-breath breathing meditation. So first of all, for your 7 out-breaths, breathe out any old, stale air, any old that's been within the body for a long time. If we like, we can breathe out quite strongly for this 7 breaths. Then focusing next on 7 in-breaths. And even though you may be stuck at home in isolation, you imagine or visualize breathing in beautiful, clean air, either air from the oceans, pure air from the forests or the mountains, or from the Pure Lands. So breathe in that beautiful, clean air for 7 breaths. Then again, we focus on the out-breath. And for 7 out-breaths, visualize you're breathing out black smoke, dark impurities. And these are in the nature of any sickness, any disease you might have or causes of disease, any unhappiness, bad memories, harm you've suffered in the past or times you've harmed others, any obstacles, any causes of suffering. So we breathe those out, again, if we like, quite forcefully for 7 breaths. Then again, focusing on 7 in-breaths. And as we breathe in, imagine you're breathing in beautiful, revitalizing white light, white energy. And this is in the nature of good health, energy, long life, compassion, love, wisdom, all enlightened qualities. If we like, these are coming from the universe, or if we like, they're coming from holy beings within the universe. And focus on 7 in-breaths. Then we go to just focusing on the sensation of the breath, either the sensation of your breathing at your nostrils, the movement of the air, or the sensation in your abdomen, in your tummy. So practicing calm abiding, relaxation meditation, just on the sensation of the breath. And if anything else appears to mind, we just label it as a distraction. We don't engage it, don't get involved with it. Just bring the mind back to the breath. And focusing on the breath is called the yoga of relaxation, as it settles the mind from too much thinking. So now we endeavour to generate a good motivation for this session, to ensure it has lasting benefits. So firstly, we recognise within ourselves our underlying wish, underlying need to be free of suffering, free of any unhappiness, any discomfort. And so many of our actions are aimed at this goal. For example, when we stretch or when we scratch, we want freedom from discomfort and so on. So recognizing that basic wish within oneself and generating compassion for oneself, thinking, wouldn't it be good to be completely free of all causes of suffering, all causes of unhappiness? And then recognizing my family is the same, my friends, close friends, people I love, my pet dog or pet cat, they too wish to be free of suffering, free of any discomfort, any unhappiness. It's fundamental to them too. And yet despite that, in all of their lives, they experience many difficulties, from boredom and dissatisfaction, anger and depression, through to physical diseases such as COVID or stroke or cancer, heart disease and so on, and through to suffering of life events like car accidents or losing loved ones and so on. So recognizing that all those close to me have that wish to be free of suffering, yet experience so much, generate a compassionate wish to all your friends and family from your heart, may they be free of all suffering and all its causes, and stabilize the mind on that wish. And then extending out our compassion towards all living beings that recognize every person, every animal, every individual being has that same wish as myself, same fundamental, basic part of each of us to overcome unhappiness, to overcome discomfort, to remove suffering. Yet experience so many difficulties, though they don't wish for them. So now from our heart, we generate the extraordinary mind of great compassion, extend out to all living beings. The simple wish, may they be free of suffering, and stabilize your mind on that for a short time. This great compassion is the essence of Buddhism. But then seeing just wishing isn't enough. We need to do something. And we recognize at the moment we're quite limited. We've got limited wisdom. We've got limited love and compassion. We're quite impatient. We've got quite poor concentration. So we don't have a huge capacity to benefit others. So therefore we take the next step and determine, I will attain my highest potential and realize enlightenment for the sake of all living beings. And this is called bodhicitta, or the mind of enlightenment. So we develop that aspiration for enlightenment for the benefit of others and stabilize on that mind of enlightenment. And so for that reason, we engage in this practice today of the path to enlightenment. And we can finish our meditation. So, this is the book that we're studying in this class, this 4 o'clock class. It's The Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism by Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden. By people who are unfamiliar, new people, The Path to Enlightenment is a really marvelous text, first written, first one by a teacher, a great Indian scholar and master who took the teachings to Tibet. And then it was expounded in great detail by Lama Tsongkhapa, the founder of the Gelug tradition. And the thing about the path to enlightenment is the Buddha, when he was alive, he was teaching for more than 30 years. And he gave 84,000 teachings, a huge volume of different teachings. And through the ages, there's been many wonderful commentaries by great masters. So there's this huge volume of material, and it's hard for us ordinary practitioners with limited time to know what we should be doing. So for that reason, the Path to Enlightenment was written, and it gives the main practical steps we need to take to attain this extraordinary state of enlightenment. And it's a graduated path, so it's in a sequence of the early teachings, so that like the foundation we need to realize the later teachings. So the early teachings like recognizing the preciousness of this human life we have, and recognizing impermanence, that it won't last forever. And right through to the later teachings on the perfection of wisdom, explaining the underlying nature of reality and so on. So, yeah, that's the path to enlightenment. We've been going for a while. We're into the what's called the path of great scope. We've looked at Geshe's extensive commentary on how to develop bodhicitta, this mind of enlightenment. In the book, there's quite a large section on the benefits of bodhicitta, 22 examples, the causes of bodhicitta, methods to develop bodhicitta, and so on. As it's the gateway to the Mahayana and the gateway to our practices becoming a cause of enlightenment. So that bodhicitta, or mind of enlightenment, that wish for enlightenment, is said to generate great merit, extraordinary positive energy that supports our life, supports our happiness, and so on, if we can develop this mind. But the wish is just a wish to attain enlightenment is insufficient. In the same way, if we wanted to have a nice chocolate cake, just wishing for it, it probably won't materialize. You've either got to get out the flour and the eggs and cocoa powder and give it a go yourself, and maybe turn out a rock hard sort of chocolate cake. Or you've got to nip down the shops and get a decent one. But either way, you've got to perform particular steps to get your chocolate cake. So why am I talking about chocolate cake? I've got a bit of a food obsession, I must admit. But the same way with this path to enlightenment, we need to, as well as developing a wish, we need to practice the steps. And the specific steps that are laid out in the path to enlightenment are maintaining our bodhicitta vows as best we can, and in particular practicing what's called the 6 perfections, 6 bodhisattva practices, the 6 perfections. So some people think perfections, striving for perfection in anything, being perfectionistic is really a symptom of a mental difficulty or stress that you might have suffered in early life, and you try to be perfect in everything so you don't get into trouble. So these 6 perfections aren't like that. We're we're trying to develop what's called these 6 transcendent actions or 6 perfections on a valid basis, that according to the Buddha and according to all these great practitioners of these various lineages who have attained these states, this is a doable thing. Within our minds, we have this within us, and it's remarkably beneficial. So, it's the nature of our mind, according to the Shakyamuni Buddha in the Tathagata Essence Sutra. It explains that the nature of our mind, and also Conqueror Maitreya gave extensive teachings on this, that the nature of our mind is actually pure, completely pure, no matter what we've done, no matter what we've thought, how unkind, how unpleasant, how mean, no matter what we've done in life, that the very nature of consciousness is completely pure and untainted by those actions. So those actions have created what's called negative karmic seeds, but the underlying nature of awareness is just clear and knowing, just clarity and awareness. And this is what each of us has as our potential to attain all the stages on the way to enlightenment, including the 6 perfections and including enlightenment itself. So, and the example Maitreya gave in one teaching was similar to the sky. The nature of the sky, the expansive, vast sky, it's not tainted or distorted or changed by clouds. So clouds might fill the sky and you can't see them. You can't see the sky. You might think it's gone, it doesn't exist. But when the winds blow and the clouds part, and we see this expansive, clear nature of sky is there, the same as it's always been. And our minds are like that. No matter what we've done in life, no matter what we've thought, there's this underlying purity. So, the 6 perfections are the perfection of generosity, perfection of ethics, perfection of patience, perfection of joyous effort or energetic perseverance, the perfection of concentration, and the perfection of wisdom. And again, they're sequential. So the earlier ones are easy to attain, and they're the basis of us being able to gain the later ones. So we're not bodhisattvas in actuality. Most of us haven't spontaneously generated bodhicitta, this mind of enlightenment, wishing for enlightenment to benefit all living beings. We haven't developed that from our hearts spontaneously like bodhisattvas have, but we're trying, step by step, trying to do so. And even though we haven't, we can engage in these 6 perfections. And it's really useful for both our life here and now, and it's also useful as creating causes for us to attain bodhicitta and attain the 6 perfections and to attain enlightenment. So we shouldn't think this is too hard for me, because they're called the 6 perfections and they're bodhisattva actions. So the last session, which was quite a long time ago, we looked at the perfection of generosity. And this is in page 649 on the Path to Enlightenment. And Geshe, in it, he defines generosity as actions of body, speech, and mind that are motivated by the virtuous thought to give. So, and generosity, paradoxically, is the cause of wealth. So that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, that if you give things away, you become wealthier. But what it's getting at is the underlying karmic cause for wealth in the future, and particularly in future lives, is that practice of giving. And to get some sense of what that's, if we can imagine the state of when we're feeling generous, it may be not often, but when we are genuinely feel like giving, then if you can imagine that mind being expressed in physical form, it's like there's an abundance. And so the perfection of generosity, the practice of generosity is said to be karmically a cause in the future of good resources and wealth, which is useful for practicing and for helping others. So it's also a cause of overcoming our miserliness, and a cause of getting over any fear of loss. Like if we park our car at the train station and we're nervous about what might happen to our car, then practicing generosity. Or if we're worried about our reputation and we're nervous about losing that, then practicing generosity helps us get over any fear of loss. So that's good. And people we meet in life, whether they're Buddhist or another tradition or no tradition, sometimes you meet people who are just naturally generous, just naturally open spirits, kind and generous. But for most of us, we need to train. And Geshe gave very good advice for some of us who have great difficulty giving. Then he said, practice first giving something from your left hand and give it to your right hand. And then give it from your right hand and give it to your left hand, and practice that, releasing the tension in your fingers and seeing that it's not such a terrible it's not such a terrible thing for us. And it's so that was and if this generosity is motivated by bodhicitta, it becomes a perfection, becomes a perfect action. And particularly if it's motivated by bodhicitta, but also with some awareness of emptiness of the self, of I, awareness of the emptiness of the gift, and also of the action of giving. And that removes any pride or ego from that practice of generosity. If we actually do that, then it becomes an actual perfection. So, and briefly, there's 4 types of generosity listed in the perfection of generosity. There's generosity of material possessions. So that can be just giving a few grains of rice each day to the birds like raw rice, short grain, so it's not too long. But if we give a few grains of rice with bodhicitta motivation, with the thought, I'm practicing generosity so I may attain enlightenment to benefit all living beings, not just these birds, but all living beings, then it becomes a perfect action, perfection of generosity. Or material possessions can be giving money or supporting others, giving some food, giving something to someone who's out on the street, doing it tough, or whatever can be, so that's a practicing generosity of material possessions. Then there's generosity of dharma, and this gives longer lasting results. So dharma generosity doesn't have to be formal teachings like this. It doesn't have to use Sanskrit words or Buddhist terminology. It can be just giving good advice or assisting people when they need it. So Geshe gave many practical instructions for when we experience difficult times, like if we fall sick or our partner leaves us or we lose our job. he gave many just very practical instructions that we can pass on if people are actually interested and want some sort of tips from a great master, basically. So simple things like recognizing it's not only me that's experiencing this suffering, it's other people as well, all around the world. Recognizing that we didn't wish for this suffering, but through the force of conditions, it naturally occurred. And so this helps us to patiently accept it. We think we can patiently accept it because through various conditions it's naturally arisen. Or recognizing the impermanence of this difficulty. So recognizing the good conditions are impermanent and bad conditions are impermanent. All things, they arise, and then they naturally cease. So this is just the nature, the way things are, so we can accept it. Or using our difficult experiences to try and develop our compassion. So we can feel through this headache I've got, through this migraine, or through this cancer, or through whatever suffering, that may I also take the suffering of other living beings. We just imagine this, and it's a way of using a difficult situation to develop one's compassion and use a difficult situation to be a cause for our enlightenment rather than just a cause for our distress. So that's just some examples of Dharma generosity that Geshe passed on. Then the third division of generosity is generosity of kindness. So this is where we feel some kindness towards others, some love, some kindness, and then naturally that's beneficial to others. The way we interact with them changes if we have goodwill towards them, and it's beneficial to others. They feel cared for, they feel loved, or they feel good. People like it. So I like it, you like it, everyone likes it. So that's generosity of love. And the fourth division is generosity of fearlessness. So this is helping people who are experiencing anxiety, experience stress, experiencing fear from whatever cause. So it might be supporting someone who's been bullied, it might be supporting someone who's experiencing abuse, or even just in the office, someone who's been put down unnecessarily. It might be providing medicine to someone who's sick, or giving some comfort, giving some support to people who are worried or fearful. So it might be rescuing an insect who's in the shower instead of just washing it down the drain, actually making the effort to stop the shower, pick it up and put it out the window, put it outside. So, and the realization, this perfection of generosity explains the actual realization of the perfection is when one is happy to give everything and all one's merit. So this is we're talking about bodhisattvas now, not us ordinary beings, but bodhisattvas who are actually from their heart, absolutely 100%, they're supporting other living beings. That's their mission. Whereas if we try to do that, then a short time later we experience regret and upset and anger. So we have to practice generosity within our capability and within what's right for us. Not get too idealistic, but do what we can. So Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, the spiritual head of the Tibetan Buddhist Society and the founder and who built this temple and wrote these books. We were lucky enough for him to live in Australia since 1976, and he lived here, and he actually taught here in this temple for from building it in 2000 through to 2011 when he passed. But he was an extraordinary example of a bodhisattva with their practice of generosity, and that he would just give continuously. He would give his time. Anyone who needed assistance, whether it was some help with healing some disease, or spiritual advice, or even business advice or personal advice, he'd continuously give away money to different people. If anyone came and made offerings to him, for example, if someone gave him a watch, the next person would walk down wearing that watch. And he established lots of charitable initiatives. And he'd always give, for bushfire relief, or farmers' drought, or earthquakes, both here and overseas, various causes. And he'd just so easily give away everything he had. And we'd sort of squirm a little bit and try to, in some way, also contribute to to whatever initiative. But many times in life, Geshe would just empty his bank account and completely give away everything. So that was, he was extraordinary bodhisattva. And after living with him, many of us lived with him for 20, 30 years. And then you really get a sense that these perfections are a doable thing, because he was a living example. Okay, so next we're up to the perfection of ethics. That's on page 677 of the Path to Enlightenment. It's the second perfection. So the further you go up these perfections, to be honest, the harder it is to teach these things. Because if we're looking at oneself, we're absolutely, it's a bit embarrassing, really, trying to teach these things. And there is a verse in the Path to Enlightenment that tells us we should look in the Dharma mirror, and looking in the Dharma mirror to look at our own thoughts and our own conduct, our own behaviour. And when we do this, it's quite distressing, because the Dharma mirror is, it doesn't really define what it is, but I think it's the framework of Dharma. It sort of reflects basically what's good and what's bad, and what we're actually capable of, what potential we have. And when we look at that, and our potential is enlightenment, and our potential is to support others, when we look in that, then it's pretty, and look at our own conduct, what we've done in the past, then it's a bit embarrassing. So I sort of wanted to explain that sometimes you hear talks on ethics, and it's almost like the speakers in this sort of holier than thou mode, where they're teaching you, they're sort of telling you, basically, you can be as good as me, blah blah blah. And I basically want to say that's not the case. It's absolutely not the case here. It's these perfections are remarkable. Bodhisattva, this Dharma is completely pure, and we're just doing our best to. The teachers here are just doing our best to present it as best we can. All right. So. Ethics. I found the perfection of ethics probably one of the harder subjects to get my head around when I've heard about it, because when I think, used to think of ethics, it was a bit of a yawn. It was a bit of, I just remember back to school and maybe I wanted to go out and play football, and there's this crusty old teacher talking about Plato or Socrates or Aristotle and ethics, and it didn't seem to relate to anything in my life. I wasn't on board at that time. So trying to get a sense of what has this actually got to do with me, the practice of ethics. So generally speaking, ethics is an intangible thing. It's about moral principles or values, what values you have, and it's about what is right and wrong, and what's good and bad, and it's in relation to particularly our thoughts and behaviour. So it's not is that a good record or is that a bad record? Is that a good painting? It's not so much necessarily about that. It's more about our behaviour, our conduct. And we actually focus on this a lot, even though we don't call it ethics. We focus a lot on what's true and what's not true. Does this thing exist? And that's sort of necessary for survival. But we also do focus on what is what's good and what's bad. We're making ethical judgments. We're making ethical decisions, ethical assessments, using our own ethical framework all the time in life. So we might, when we're meeting people, we're, whether it's at our family or at home or in this community here at the Tibetan Buddhist Society, whether it's at work, in the office or out at the shops, then we're sort of, we naturally assess other people. We might assess if we're talking to someone, is their motive okay? We might assess, is it a bit suspect? Is there a bit something funny going on, or are they straightforward? And I think there's been studies that have shown that within 2 seconds of hearing someone's voice, we've already decided if we can trust them. So our ethical framework is in operation, assessing whether this person's good or bad, are they trustworthy or not. And it's sort of not instinctual, but it's like a subconscious thing that's operating. So we tend to, we judge others using our ethical framework, and we judge their actions, and we might label the person based on that, based on what judgment we make. And often it's dependent on what effect do they have on me. We sort of weight the effect they have on me, we weight it more heavily than the effect they have on others generally. So if someone scowls at me, but is smiling at others, then we sort of think, oh, they're not really underlying, they're not a very good person. But if they smile at me, and then they're sort of scowling or snarling at someone else, then we tend to think, oh yeah, they're really underneath, they're a good they're a good person. We tend to exaggerate our assessment, our ethical assessment of others, based on their effect on oneself or those we're close to, often. So with others' speech, so in conversation, we might get a sense of, if in conversation someone seems very competitive or trying to control, this conversation is all about who's controlling the conversation, who's dominating it, or if there's a lot of self-promotion going on in the conversation, or we might even still feel there's some manipulation or exploitation, then our ethical framework, we're taking note of that automatically, and we're assessing them as this type of person, that type of person, that speech isn't that good, or so on. But on the other hand, if someone's engaging us with good heart and clarity, and there's no underlying funny business, and they might empathize or just very good at listening to us, then again we're assessing them in a favourable light. So yeah, and also physical things. If someone's sort of barges you out the way and grabs the last piece of cake, and then we again, our ethical frameworks at work. So I'm trying to give a sense of that this ethics isn't a remote philosophical subject. It's something that's going on all the time for us anyway. And these days with COVID and all the isolation, if someone coughs on you or sneezes on you, they stand too close to you. At work the other day, someone asked me for their help, and then they were standing right next to me, and they had bubble gum, and they were blowing bubbles, and you get these explosive pop and these sort of saliva droplets shooting out. And so in that situation, with others' physical actions also, all right, we're thinking, gee, this guy's, this is a bit much, we're making ethical assessments about whether their actions are good or bad, whether they're a good, bad person, and so on. And verbally, we say things like when we were young, we'd say, that's not fair. That's an ethical assessment coming from our ethical framework. We're saying, this isn't fair. Or in Australia, we say, onya, which means good on ya. It's a good action. Or hats off to you, or that's not right, or you should do this, you shouldn't do that, or they're a good bloke. Or so even our speech gives away that we do make ethical assessments all the time, and so on. So anyway, that's probably enough of that general stuff about ethics. But I think one interesting question is whether the Buddhist teachings on our fundamental nature, our Buddha nature, whether they imply that we naturally do have underlying sort of a good ethical framework. And the reason I'm just floating that idea is because the nature of the mind, as I mentioned earlier, is the nature of awareness or consciousness, not the brain, but awareness is just pure. It's knowing and it's clear, clarity and awareness. That's underlying, that's who we are, underlying. And these are the teachings given by Maitreya. This is the conventional nature of the mind. And ultimately, it's empty. Its emptiness is its even deeper nature. But on top of that is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Often he's taught that the nature of the mind, once we cleared away all the rubbish, all the neurotic grasping and worry and so on, that the underlying nature of consciousness, that there's a compassion, there's an underlying connection or compassion there for others. And he talks about almost biological affection, that a baby, when it's born, naturally has this connection with its mother. And there's been lots of research based on that, and lots of examination that the human beings, because when we're born, we're completely helpless for quite a long time compared to other animals. Like I think a chimpanzee can feed itself on day one, but we just lie there helpless. And so for survival, then our brains and hormonal system, our electrochemical and our hormonal system has been wired to support caring, to support compassion. And there's lots of evidence that, for example, when someone else hurts themselves, that part of the brain lights up in ourselves as well if we're observing it. And if someone hurts themselves, then the caring or compassionate center lights up. So even on a physical level, we have this this nature of caring. And once they become clear through meditation, once our minds settle down, then that becomes more apparent within us. Often we're too busy or too anxious or too stressed or too angry to be aware of this. But when the mind settles, so if that is the case, that we do have this underlying nature of kindness, then it follows, I think, that we have an underlying natural ethics within us. Yeah. So I'll just see what time. It's 5:12. Okay. Yep, I'm going a bit long on this. Anyway, so I'm getting on to the Buddhist definition of ethics. So that's on page 677 on the path to enlightenment. And here Geshe defines ethics as the virtuous thought to abandon harming others and thoughts that are the basis of harming them. So this is baseline ethics, is in Buddhism, is do no harm. So don't harm people physically or with your speech, and if we can, abandon harmful thoughts. And then if we can attain that, then on top of that, helping others. So that's Buddhist ethics. So it said the virtuous thought to abandon harming others and the thoughts that are the basis of harming them. So we have lots of thoughts that are a basis of harming others. We might have resentment and anger, which we wish to harm others, because we feel they've hurt us. We might have greediness, where we grab something that belongs to others or that would help others, but because we're greedy, we grab it. We might have jealousy, where we're upset because so-and-so's got something that I haven't got, whether it's money or a relationship or a car, whatever it is, or a promotion. And because of that, we're quite keen to undermine them or harm them. We might harm others through competition. So I had a very gentle maths teacher when I was young, and I had a very gentle maths teacher when I was young, but he also instructed on rugby, and he said, if anyone falls in front of you, between you and the ball, you've got to go over them, you trample them with your studs. So that was the idea of some reason in competition, that was acceptable. So that can be the basis of harm. Or it might be attachment to power, to dominating others. And for example, in this COVID lockdown, then domestic abuse has risen dramatically, I think, in lots of countries. And that's often, there's often an expression of domination, harming someone else through attachment. I don't know, maybe one reason is being attached to that power. Then another reason we might harm others is being indifferent to the impact of our actions on others. So even just stepping on ants, or we might be indifferent to the effect our speech is having on others. Or even pride, we might have thoughts of pride that cause us to harm others. I know previously in our office where I work, then I said, a fly comes in, I say, I'll take it outside and don't swat it. But then through pride, someone will be determined even more to swat it because they're not going to be told what to do. So just sort of trying to illustrate that there's lots of delusions or destructive emotions we have within that are the cause of this harm. And we can harm with body, speech, and mind. So again, I said the essence of Buddhist ethics is non-harm, and one reason for that is equalizing ourselves for others. like that meditation we had at the beginning, recognizing how we are equal to all living beings. And I was taught this at school. It's like a fundamental truth. Don't do that to someone. How would you like it? So recognizing that every living being doesn't like harm. They don't like suffering. It's a fundamental truth. It was taught at school, and it's taught in Buddhism, and it's taught in other traditions. And it's something we forget when we're caught up in stuff. So it's a really useful instruction. Anyone who's got a pet dog, who's got a pet cat, they know that cat or dog doesn't like harm. When we were kids, we'd jump down from the table and you'd land on the dog's paw that was sitting under the table, and it would yelp, and because and it was very clear, our dog Donna didn't like harm. So yeah, it's the same for all of us. So in the Buddha, he suggested a specific ethical code. So the point's not just to have a code that you're true to and so on. The point is to have an ethical code that guides your actions and restrains destructive emotions, destructive impulses, prevents us from harming ourselves, prevents us from harming others. So I'll just read a quote from page 678 from Shantideva. If I can find 678, it is, so it says, nowhere has the killing of fish or other creatures been eradicated. The attainment of merely the thought to abandon this is explained as the perfection of ethics. So the perfection of ethics is a state of mind. So nowhere in the world has harm been eradicated. If you watch David Attenborough, you see in the wild, there's non-stop harm. You know, baby seals are born, or baby penguins, and there's killer whales cruising up and down the beach waiting for them to make their first swim. When any animal slows down, it gets eaten. This is in the wild. And also humans all in the world, all around. There's never ending. There's always war. There's always abuse, and so on. So the perfection of ethics, we haven't got the power to control or stop all that harm, but we do have the power and the ability to stop harm within us and stop the urge to harm, the wish to harm, the harmful actions, those impulses. So that's what we're trying to train in here, the perfection of ethics. So with bodhicitta, it becomes a perfection with the mind of enlightenment. So, for example, if we've got a regular habit of road rage, if we're always getting upset on the road, and we're always screaming at other people because they're so unjust, we feel they didn't indicate and they pulled in front of us, and we've got a tendency to scream at them, maybe to pull our car in front of them, and then maybe even to jump up and down on their bonnet. If that's a regular habit of yours, then we can practice the perfection of ethics. And we think, I'll restrain myself. I'll still scream, but I won't pull in front of them, and I won't jump up and down on the bonnet. And through this restraint, then may I quickly attain enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings. And that's practicing the perfection of ethics. And then the next time we might manage to, I won't even scream at them from within inside my car. And through this restraint, through controlling my mind, may this become a cause for my enlightenment, for the benefit of all living beings. And again, that becomes a perfection of ethics. So I'm looking at the time now. I think it's 5:20.
It's 5:20, so probably I should. We should probably do the prayers. I've just seen. Okay, there's been another request for a light offering that's come through. This is for Pam Martin's mother, who passed away last Wednesday. So before we do the prayers, we'll also dedicate. We'll dedicate to Pam Martin's mother, who passed away. So may she, in the intermediate state, have an easy passage and gain a good rebirth supported by holy beings, and gain a good rebirth with a good family, good conditions, and step by step meet the holy Dharma, and step by step gain enlightenment. So now we just focus on that for a couple of moments. So now we'll complete the session with the prayers, and then if anyone wants to ask questions, you can pass them through on the what's it called, Money? The chat, the live chat. But for people who have the prayers at home, then we say just trying to find the page. It's called the final path of the final prayer of the graduated path, composed by the unequaled second Buddha, Jetsun Tsongkhapa. And all of these prayers and all these verses, Geshe are extremely painstakingly translated again and again to make sure the pure teachings from these great masters came through. So we say the final prayer. By the two collections vast as space, amassed with effort for a long time, may I become a chief of conquerors, a guide for all beings whose mind's eyes blinded by ignorance. Also in all lives while not yet come to that, may Manjushri favour me with his compassion, finding the supreme path, complete with all stages of the teachings. May I please the conquerors by practicing well, by my precise understanding of the essential points of the path, with skillful means drawn along by strong compassion, and by dispelling the mental darkness of beings. May I uphold the conqueror's teaching for a long time, where the supreme precious teaching has not spread, also where it has spread but become degenerate, with a mind deeply moved by great compassion. May I make clear this treasure of benefit and bliss. The stages of the path, excellently established by the marvelous deeds of the conquerors and their sons, give glory to the minds of those aspiring for liberation. May the conqueror's deeds be long preserved. May all humans and non-humans who remove the obstructions and establish conditions favorable to cultivating the excellent path never be parted for all of their lifetimes from the purest of paths which the Buddhas have praised. When someone makes effort to practice properly the 10 points of conduct of the Supreme Vehicle, may he always be assisted by the mighty protectors, and may oceans of good fortune spread out reaching all. Titagi pinan kadiwayang tuzandi shisi shitan jiti zipamana maludrupadang luntotan jozin piduruno Ditu Biziratunda Dijatolojidam Midrajim Nijajansen
Whatever white virtues we have thus created, we dedicate as causes, no less to uphold the holy Dharma of scripture and realization, and to fulfill without exception the prayers and deeds of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the three times. By the power of this merit in all our lives, may we never be parted from the four wheels of the Mahayana, and may we complete the journey on the paths of renunciation, bodhicitta, pure view, and the two stages. By this virtue, may all beings complete the collections of wisdom and merit, and attain the two holy bodies arisen from wisdom and merit. May the precious superior mind of enlightenment be generated in those who have not yet generated it, and not decrease in those who have developed it, but increase continuously. So thank you. If there's any questions, we'll just hold on a minute and see if anything comes through. Is anything come through, Money? I can't read.
Not yet.
No, okay.
We wait for a few more minutes.
Yeah. We'll wait for a few more minutes. And just I'll say a big thank you to the team that's put together all this live stream technology and organizing. So, that's great for people. Normally we give our teachings here in the temple. We're not used to speaking to cameras, but yeah, it's useful for so many people around the world are locked down. I know my sisters and mother in the UK are also got up at 7 o'clock to listen to this. So, hi, Mum. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Emma, I'll just say Emma, who's here in the temple, has a question. So
people tell me that sometimes the most hurtful speech is silence.
Right.
So,
right.
So, like, I guess sometimes I'm wondering what does the Dharma say about what harm you're going to do?
Yeah.
Because to talk about something might be education, but to actually be silent for someone else might be, create, reject, or, very strong other feelings. Okay.
I'm wondering if I should give the microphone to Emma, because that's a very good question, and it's one I don't know the answer to. But okay. So Emma asked. She knows, I think personally, and also from other people, that sometimes the most harmful speech is silence. So she's asking, what does the Dharma say about that? And I I'm not sure I've actually heard any instruction where silence. I've certainly heard a good saying, and don't break the silence. If your speech isn't an improvement, then don't break the silence. But in this case, I suppose if silence is, if we're not responding actively to support others, then we're not engaging in the bodhisattva actions. So bodhicitta vows, there is a vow that we actually have to break, of Vinaya vows, if it's of significant benefit for others. And breaking silence isn't breaking any vows. So if someone's engaged us and they're actually requesting help, or if our interjection can stop someone being bullied or stop some mistreatment, then I think in the bodhisattva path, I feel we're obligated to do so. But it's a personal judgment, especially if there's personal risk involved. Everyone's got their own assessment of how much danger they're prepared to put themselves in to support others. But I do think, realistically, this path is about supporting others, and that's what we should be endeavouring to do. So that's as much as I can say. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for a great question. Tricky one, because I've never heard it. It's very.
Even tell you that I can't deal with silence, but you know that you have to have a conversation. It's going to be vegetation, and you have to kind of work out, which way to go.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose we just have to rely on our own wisdom to assess in every situation. The same way with our Dharma practice, the Buddha said we have to rely on our own wisdom, don't rely on the Buddha. And I suppose that also translates to all our attempts, feeble or otherwise, to practice Dharma in the real world. Then we're totally reliant on our wisdom to what's the best course in any situation. We just do what we can. So is there any other questions? Anything else come through, Mani?
There are a lot of thanks from a lot of people, but so far no other questions.
Okay.
I'll wait for 2 more minutes and then
Okay,
we will
good.
proceed.
Yeah. Yeah. So next week we'll continue with the perfection of ethics. I focused a bit on this week just to help people get a sense of how ethics is relevant, because maybe it was just a mental block that I had, but I always had sort of trying to figure out what's this got to do with me. So it's hard to see that we do have our own ethical framework and it's operating all the time, and that we can practice ethical mindfulness. With this, particularly with non-harm and helping others. It's a practice we can engage in. I'm trying to read what's on the computer screen. So yeah, thanks everyone for all the messages of support coming through. I'm glad the stream didn't fail on us. I was very stressed at the beginning because we only had 1 minute to go before we had our connection up and running. But okay, so I'll wrap it up. Do you think, Mckibben? Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone. We're going to end the stream now. Yeah. Have a good rest of the weekend and a safe week. Thank you. And Geshe always used to always end his teachings. He loved the saying, "Take care of yourself," because it's only us who can really take care of ourselves, in particular our minds. So good night. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.
Have we sent out prayer books?
We've sent out, I did because they're copyright, I just taken some photos.